Hey,
Hi.
I'm so happy to have you back on the podcast. I'm so happy to be doing this with you again. It's been too long. It's been too long.
Yeah, I don't even know when we last did a podcast. Aside from our other podcast, I don't know when the last time I was on your podcast was.
It had to have been about like 2-ish years ago, right when I started. You were like one of the first people. Well, there's like a whole backstory, but I don't think we've gone into that before. But like you were one of the first people that was like bigger than I am and whatnot. That was like, I'll come on the podcast, and why don't you come on mine? I was just like, I remember being like blown away. I was like, what? Like, you really want to come on? I like have 500 followers. What are you talking about? I don't
Oh
know.
my
It's
God,
just like, go ahead.
I looked it up. It was August 2020.
God, that's crazy. Yeah, that's even sooner than I thought. Oh no, I started
I
in
mean,
2019. I started in 2019. End of
that's
2019.
like almost 3 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Like,
Yeah, we're in 2023.
yeah, like our friend anniversary will be this year, and it'll be basically 3 years that we've known each other in a way.
Holy crap. Holy crap.
Yeah,
And we
it
only
is
been at
crazy.
one festival together.
Yeah.
Just proves though you have internet friends. You have internet friends kind of everywhere.
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
how it always turns out. I even got like a DM from Chrissy from Dubstep FBI yesterday, and she was like, "Hope to see you around." And I was like, "Well, if you're gonna be at these two festivals, I'll be there, but like I don't have too big of a schedule this year." So it's mainly a lot of internet friendships going on for sure.
So you're not going to be going to any of the dubstep shows with them?
No, but
Not yet. Not converged still.
no, nope, still not gonna go to Lost Lands. That's still a no.
Never.
Well,
No.
also this year we don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's
Because
true.
of the whole, yeah, the whole crazy. There's a lot of crazy stuff obviously going on in the world, but the whole Ohio thing, Lost Lands it could get moved other
I
places.
think it should still happen.
It will
No,
happen.
I'm just kidding.
Well,
I'm totally
I mean,
kidding.
it will happen, but not in Ohio, probably.
That'd
And
be
will I be there?
interesting.
Probably not.
Be interesting where they put it this year. I'm glad I haven't bought tickets yet.
Oh
So
yeah, you might want to wait just in case.
it's a good call. It's a good call.
Yeah.
It's a good call. Well, let's update some people on what's been going on with you and what's it says last time we were podcasting together. We
Yes.
were doing Festival Tales, which was a fun time.
Yes.
And we came to the conclusion, heartfelt, that we were going to stop. And there has been so much in both of our lives that has happened since then. I mean, a lot, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
But you have started your own new business. It has been taken off. It's been doing great.
Mm-hmm.
You have restarted your podcast, brand new, under the associated with the new business, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Let's dive into it. I know what it's about a little bit. I know about it,
Yeah.
but tell us, what have you been up to since then? So it's been about a year or so.
Yeah.
What is this new business? What is this new podcast? And then I got some follow-up questions, but let's dive into it.
Cool. Yeah, let's dive in. Yeah, it's been crazy. So we stopped recording April of 2022, I want to say. So it's been, yeah, like almost a year since then. But even since August of 2020, like if I go back and listen to that episode, it's gonna be like a time warp, I feel like. Because at that point in my life, we obviously didn't know what was gonna happen with the pandemic. We didn't know anything about anything. We just kind of like were working from home. We were just saving money because there were no festivals. Like it was a very interesting period of time that we last recorded. And so I was still working a 9 to 5. I was still working for another company. And I was figuring out what I wanted to do because I just always knew I wasn't going to work for someone else. I just knew that there was something else going on here. And I wasn't sure if my main page vibe with Ade was going to take me there or if it was going to be something completely different. And so end of 2020, I got some clarity to maybe go into coaching, life coaching. And I'd always wanted to be a coach since I was like 22. I had mentors, I had coaches, and I was like, this could be cool, but like all my mentors and coaches were like 40, 50, older. And I was like, okay, maybe I need to be older. Like, who's going to trust me? You know what I mean? So I had that mindset for a while. And then there's another raver in the community, Maddie Maple. I had been following her page for a while. She is a confidence coach. And I'd been listening to her podcast for a while. And at the end of her like 2020 recap, she talked about how her business was doing and like she really wants to get into coaching other women to do it. And I was like, this is a girl that I can relate to. She goes to raves, she goes to festivals. She wants to start coaching people on how to be a coach. Like, all right, let's just do it. So I started working with her beginning of January 2021, and we started working on a coaching business. She really helped me get the foundations down and everything. And then I launched my business. Well, as we were doing that, I had to quit my job. Something happened at my 9 to 5 that just was like not so chill. And I was like, all right, if there was a sign, this is it. So ended up, I started working with Maddie, and 3 weeks later, I quit my 9 to 5, launched the coaching business the same day as my last day at my 9 to 5. And I was like, all right, here we go, jumping into the unknown.
So before we move forward real quick, I want
Yeah.
to stop and ask, what advice do you have for people on taking the leap to be
Mm.
self-employed?
Well, the pandemic definitely helped because I saved a lot of money. So I think a lot of people say have like 3 to 6 months worth of, your expenses saved up. I would say I was probably closer to the 3 month end, but I also, before I quit my 9 to 5, I secured freelancing opportunities. So that kind of helped give me like a little bit of a safety net of like, okay, I'd be doing some marketing freelancing while working on this coaching business. So I would say have all your eggs in a row, ducks in a row, whatever that saying is. That will help you feel more prepared. But at the end of the day, it was one of those things that I just was like, all right, it's time to go, like sink
Yeah.
or swim. Like I am very fortunate and blessed to say that I've never had a point in my life where I truly was struggling. And I thank my parents for that and my upbringing for that in terms of like finances and like stuff like that. And I wanted to challenge myself. I was like, all right, like we're gonna see if this business works. Like if it doesn't, like well, we'll move on to we can always go back to a 9 to 5, but I really wanted to figure it out for myself. So I was kind of like, I'm ready to struggle. I'm ready to like do this because that's better than working for someone else at this point. So I figured out, what the tax situation would look like. I figured out what the insurance situation would look like, my 401k would look like. And it's a lot easier than a lot of people think. I mean, I'm not trying to convince any like that everyone should quit their 9 to 5. I think it takes specific types of people to work for themselves. And we can talk about that. But I had a lot of like beliefs of like, oh, but like I need to have a 9 to 5 because of insurance, or I need to have a 9 to 5 because they take care of my taxes or makes my taxes easier. And I've come to find out that those things will figure itself out and you will figure those things out. It's not really a reason to keep you from chasing something that you really want to do.
Yeah, yeah. And not only that, it's like that you kind of mentioned that with your job. Like sometimes these things just kind of line up. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is weird how those are like worries, and then when the time comes, it's just like, oh well, you meet somebody randomly at a bar, their friend is an accountant, and they start their own accounting firm, they're looking for
Yeah.
something client, and they're willing to offer you like 20% off. You don't know what that is. That's an example, and that's
Mm-hmm.
obscure for taxes, but like it is kind of crazy that like it is, and it's funny you say that. So the funniest thing about that, what you just said, was like the 9 to 5 stuff, 401k, the taxes, where all of that is handled for you. And I think that's almost, I don't want to say, well, I'm going to say it like this, but I don't mean it that way, but like almost part of the trap, like where they're like,
Mm-hmm.
we got it all for you. It's all taken care of. And you're just like, all right, I'll work 40 hours for you. Like,
Yeah.
but it's definitely, I find it with myself, it's hard to get out of that mindset from working a 9 to 5 to then like
Mm-hmm.
wanting to make that jump.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
it's security, right? Like that's what keeps a lot of people there is safety and security. And I've even seen it with my boyfriend where he was signing up for insurance through his company and like he ended up just going outside of his company because it would have cost the exact same. You know what I mean? And like it was costing very similar, but he wasn't getting as many benefits. So he ended up going his own route to get his own insurance and like it's interesting stuff like that. Like you mentioned, the trap, like it looks nice and sounds nice and gives you that security, but is it really giving you those benefits that you might need? But yeah, I asked around friends that I had that also work for themselves. I was like, what insurance do you use? Or people local to Austin that I knew were self-employed. I was like, who's your tax person? And I just like vetted out options like that. So you definitely have to get very almost kind of scrappy, right? And like just figure it out.
resourceful. Yeah.
Resourceful. There we go.
That's scrappy. That's, yeah.
I know that sounds I would say you have to get scrappy. I don't know. But yeah, resourceful sounds better.
No, that's it's very true. And it also takes, like you kind of touched on this, and let's dive into that. Like it does take a certain type of person with, I would say, a certain amount of drive and almost like willingness. Like you mentioned, like I'm kind of ready to struggle a bit, like on it. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is not everyone wants that struggle. Not everyone wants that. And you could attest it's probably, at first it probably was, all right, I'm not even, you might be working more than a 9 to 5. That is one of the, I guess, advantages of a 9 to 5 is you got 40 hours. You could just shut it off after 40.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's your own business, you're kind of 24/7 almost, give or take, really, but pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. And the power in that though is like I choose when I want to work though. And I
Yes.
don't have to like report to anyone. I mean with my freelancing projects, I I have a vacation coming up in March and I was just like, I'm gonna be out this week. And it's just kind of like I'm
Yeah.
out, I don't have to request PTO or anything like that, which is like really nice. But yeah, to go back to your question of like what like the type of person, right? You really do have to be resourceful, like I've said, diligent. You'll have to figure out routines. You'll have to figure out a set schedule for yourself. I will say I am working more than 40 hours a week, but it's flexible when I do. Like I can work a little bit in the morning, I take some time off, go to the gym or hang out with a friend, grab coffee, and then like I'll work a little bit at night. Like no day looks the same. I will say like the only things that remain constant is like my morning routine and my nighttime routine. Then everything else is kind of like fluid depending on meetings and stuff like that. And you have to be prepared for months where things are a little slow. My first year of business, things were very fast paced, adrenaline pumping, because I think it was so exciting and new to my clients and community. And there's some months where, I do a launch and it completely sells out, goes great. There's other months where it's like crickets, So you really have to continue to innovate and understand, who your audience and community is and consistently serve their needs and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that it really takes. But I've always said with like when you become an entrepreneur and like even if you're just trying to become like a higher version of yourself, like we always talk about like highest self and spiritual community, but like it's going to require like consistent level ups, which like comes with a bunch of different mindset challenges and like beliefs of like, oh, I can't do that or I can't do this. And it's like once you get really like settled and good, then it's like you go to that next level. I refer to it as like a Pokemon, right? You
Yeah.
defeat the next Pokemon and then the next one pops up that's like the bigger badder version or whatever, right? And you're like, oh, I just got through this one, like another one, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that's what it's like to be an entrepreneur and like be consistently working on yourself. Like the work is just never ending sometimes compared to what, like a 9 to 5 when I was working. I feel like I was going through little subtle changes of growth compared to I'm like dying and rebirthing every single month. I feel like
Yeah, that's something I can relate to. I feel like that, sorry, totally just messed that up. But I just
no, you're
botched that.
good.
But I was gonna say was I can kind of relate to that with the, I think it's also comes with when you are grinding that those big changes happen because you kind of just, you have to make those changes if you want to hit that certain goal of yours or certain, whatever you're striving for. You can't, like, when you're, I think the worst trap is actually the trap of just like being in a comfortable position. And I can
Yep.
speak to my own life with that in the last year and a half. And I'm out of that now, which is why things are picking up again. And I'm feeling great and I'm moving forward. But it's like that progression when you're like in the grind, as I call it, and you're like moving, it's like that's when that comes, because you don't really have a choice. It's like those new things are being thrown at you. You have to adapt. You have to become the best version of yourself because
Mhm.
you're working towards some goal. You can't, you have to shed that old skin to work for something new, essentially.
100%. Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Staying
tricky.
the same. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky though to do that. Like it is, and
Mhm.
it's scary too, because it's scary in a sense of like just the unknown, I guess, the unknown of taking the leaps and whatnot. That's what's scary. But I think when you like what you're doing and you're grinding, it's
Yeah.
like it's just like whoop, it's just, oh, on to the next thing. Like if there's no like, at least I can only speak for myself here, but like when I'm grinding like I am right now, I am like beyond happy. I'm like, oh, I love this. I love that. I like what I'm doing
Mhm.
here. I cherish, not only that, I cherish the time I have with people in my life that, because I am working so hard, you get moments with your significant other, with your friends, with your family. And if you're like in this comfortness where you can see them all the time, not that that's bad, but like you don't appreciate those moments as much as you might when you're like at grinding and you're having to pencil,
Mhm.
like almost pencil in time, like, all right, ma, I got an hour for dinner, let's go to dinner. And like she's gonna be super
Yeah.
like in the middle of my spiel, my goodness. But yeah, it's intense and it's awesome at the same time.
Mhm.
um, I want to shift a little bit over and I want to talk about your podcast, because I'm
Yeah.
excited to talk about your podcast because you're back to podcasting, which is exciting. You're back.
Mhm.
I'm back to podcasting. It's like super pumped all around. But
Yeah.
so you've restarted. You're doing a whole new podcast, correct?
Yep. Whole new
And
podcast.
what is the name of the podcast? Because I know it's on your YouTube page and I was looking at it and I don't want to say the wrong name, but I believe it's Life is a Vibe. Am I wrong?
Yep.
Okay,
Life
cool.
is a vibe.
I
Mhm.
didn't check. I was only on the computer looking and I was like, I don't see it on the YouTube, but I found the playlist. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
so my first question, this might be a tricky one, but what episode do you think is the best for a new listener to listen to?
Ooh. I've only done like 9 episodes. I should know this. Probably, I think it was episode 2. Let me look. Yeah, episode 2, which is a nice, short, and sweet one, but you really get the idea of my whole philosophy really with life. And that is to have an experimental mindset when it comes to literally anything and everything. Because when we have expectations or we have assumptions about life, it can cause resentment, it can cause disappointment, it can cause frustration. And so that episode, it's called This Type of Mindset is the Key to Life. And I talk about having an experimental mindset, what it is, the importance of it, why you should do it, and how you can adopt that mindset. So I always, with all of my clients and with my community, I always say we start with a mindset, because if your mindset is, no, I won't say negative, but what I like to say is like unsupportive, meaning you're hard on yourself, you don't give yourself grace, you are not nice to yourself. That's an unsupportive mindset. So I always encourage people to work on your mindset first, because you're doing all these things, like you're working out, you're budgeting, you're trying to get a promotion. Like if you don't work on your own self-worth, beliefs, confidence, any of that, like it just, you don't go anywhere. It doesn't feel good. Or you get those things and it doesn't feel good or satisfying because you don't feel worthy of getting it or anything like that. So I think that's a good episode to start with, because mindset work is key.
All right, episode 2. I'm gonna give it a listen. I haven't listened to episode 2. Everyone else take a listen. But no, yeah, that's a beautiful summation of the mindset you need to go. And I think that applies, like you said, it applies to really everything. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
loving yourself and knowing yourself are goes a long way. And again, there's like a difference. I've always said this. There's a difference between like knowing yourself and being like cocky about yourself. You don't want to be getting to that realm, but like knowing yourself goes a long way. And it does. It helps when you start to look at things differently. You mentioned the gym as a perfect example. Like it is already hard enough to go and work and then like push yourself to work out hard. But if you have an appreciation for yourself and what you're doing with that, it goes a long way of like, oh my God, I'm getting in shape. I'm starting to feel better. Like, and then you start to get almost like addicted to that feeling, and it spills over and carries on. But no, that's awesome. That's beautiful. What made you want to start podcasting again? Because I know for the longest time, even to me, it was a shock. You were like, I'm starting up again. I was like, what? No way. So what was that driving force? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So through a lot of the work that I've done in coaching, I've landed on, this is a whole other rabbit hole, but have you heard of human design?
I have not.
So it's basically like astrology and some other different systems all wrapped into one. And you can like, with astrology, you get like a birth chart and it tells you like, oh, you're an Aries sun, Taurus moon, like yada, yada, yada. Right. Human design is very similar to that, but I found it more impactful in terms of like working with your energy, and it's based off like your birth time, birthplace, all of that. And the reason why I'm starting here is because I found out I was called a generator. So there's like a couple different types, and being a generator, you're here to like do things that light you up. And when you're doing things that light you up, it inspires others, lifts people up. Like you will attract more things into your life when you follow that, essentially. And so I didn't tell you this, but this was what was going on when I started learning more about human design. Was like I was starting to evaluate literally everything in my life. And I was like, does that light me up? Does that light me up? Does that light me up? Like I was going through everything. And even with like something like Vibe with Ade, right? I was taking a look at all of the parts of that brand that I was working on. And I was like, what is not lighting me up? And I was starting to remove it, because if I feel bogged down by like, oh, I have to do this, or I should do this, or like obligations, like I feel resentment, or I feel like frustration. And same thing with brands reaching out. Like if it didn't give me that hell yes, sorry, can I say that?
Yeah, you say
Okay.
it.
But if it doesn't give me that like full body hell yes, right? Like then that's a no. It should be a no. And so that's what I was starting to find out with my own podcast before, that was called Let's Vibe Podcast. And I felt like that podcast was trying to emulate a lot of the other podcasts in the rave and festival scene. And I feel like I was just, yeah, it just didn't feel good. And I was also trying to incorporate some of the coaching stuff in there, but it was like I was having these two identities kind of battle in that one podcast, of like my self-help side with the festival side. And like that just wasn't working. So decided to cut that out. And then that started feeling a little bit better in terms of what was on my plate. So I took that off my plate. And then when it came to our podcast, I waited a while, because I was like, I obviously still love doing it, but in terms of what else was on my plate and like, what you had on your plate and everything, I was just like, I waited a while, because I hate going back on things that I committed to and being like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I just didn't like doing that. And our conversation we had was so hard. I was literally crying to you about it, because I hated feeling like I let someone else down, or anything like that. And like when we signed on to our podcast together, was at a time where like things were slow, right? It was August of 2020, when we were starting that podcast and doing all of that. Like that was such a different time. So we obviously decided to let go of Festival Tales podcast, RIP. May that podcast rest in peace.
RIP.
But I decided to wait it out before starting Life is a Vibe podcast for a little bit. Wanted to see how coaching went. If I liked it before I obviously invested more time into it. So Life is a Vibe came to me as just another platform to talk and just express other things in my coaching business and ideas and like things like that. So I decided to start Life as a Vibe. We launched it in October of 2022. And yeah, it's just my weekly space. I think another thing was the thought of like, oh, I need to do hour-long episodes. They need to be hour long. And I was like, I can't do
Yeah.
hour-long episodes, right? Because of the editing, and like that
Yeah.
felt like an to me. And I have another friend, Allison. She has Wishing You Wellness podcast. She's amazing, by the way. She's a mental health advocate. She's also getting into coaching as well. And she does like 15-minute episodes. If she has a slow week, she's like, yeah, I'll do a 15-minute episode or a 10-minute episode. Like, she really got me thinking, like, yeah, I don't need to do these hour-long episodes. And sometimes they're 15 minutes, sometimes they're 30 minutes. And so I've given myself that freedom to like just let myself talk and not feel that pressure to go an hour, you know? So that's really where it came to be. And that's why I do feel excited about Life as a Vibe, because I'm getting to talk about other topics and things. Because I love talking about Raisin festivals. It's great. But at a certain point, it's been a little bit redundant of like, here's how to prepare for this festival and that festival. And like, it's tips I've been doing for so long. So
It's so funny you say that, because that's like where we've differed, obviously, and I've started a lot later. But I think I've talked to you so much about how I'm like, I don't want to be pinned to like one thing, and not that you ever were,
yeah.
but like that's where I felt like every time I did a month of festival content and nothing else, then I'm like, oh, I'm just not being me. And yeah, my growth
Yeah.
is a little bit slower, and I'm still trying to work out the kinks and like how to manage both. But like, because I do still love that side of like content and festivals, but
Mhm.
it's like I just can't. I'm multidimensional. I do a lot of different things. I just don't want to be boxed into that thing. And luckily, this podcast doesn't revolve around raves.
Yeah.
So that's perfect for me. Do I have people on in the rave scene? Of course, but like we don't talk about the entire episode just about that. So it's like
Yeah.
it's like that perfect balance. This is where my balance kind of comes in. But yeah, I totally understand that. I think it also speaks a lot of volume to anyone out there listening, is that like you got to do the things that you love and you're having a
Mhm.
blast doing, because not only are you going to have a better time, but like
Yeah.
the work itself is going to flow easier. It's going to feel, you're going to be more excited about doing it, like all those things that you mentioned it's a fact. When you find something you love doing, it's like it's just that much easier.
Yeah.
I hate editing. I hate it. I hate sitting down to edit.
Mhm.
And that's been my biggest pitfall. That's not to talk about
Yeah.
myself, but it's been my biggest pitfall. I've got someone else to do it now. And I couldn't be happier, because now it just gives me
Yep.
time to reach out to guests like yourself and then have you come on for 40 minutes and just chit chat and have fun. Like, and that's all I get to do now. And I love that.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah, exactly.
but everyone else, that's another, you gotta find what it is you like and go for it. And it's gonna make that work on the back end. I mean, so much easier.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of time, unfortunately, because Zoom is only for 40 minutes and we haven't upgraded it yet. We're working on it, folks. But um, I have one question I really want to get to real quick.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you went on a all women's retreat, correct?
Mhm. Yep.
And that I saw your posts. I saw some of the other creators posts that are people from you that I've known, and I was super intrigued on that. It looked awesome, an all ladies
Mhm.
retreat, and you got to just I don't even want to speak on it because I have no idea.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I want you to speak on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us about that experience, and do you recommend more women going on those type of retreats with a group of women?
For sure. So I went with my coach, Maddie Maples. That was the original coach I talked about earlier. She had a retreat called Fruition in San Diego. And she really wanted it to be this like luxurious retreat. Some other retreats you might see are like, let's go to Costa Rica, be in the jungle, like stuff like that. She also hosts retreats like that. But yeah, she wanted to do this like luxurious, like embody your divine feminine energy, queen energy, like all of that. And so I went to San Diego in October. This was my first time doing anything of the sort. And I think it was 3 days, 4 days. We had like a private chef cooking us yummy meals, and then we had like different sessions and stuff. And each day was themed differently. So we had like a letting go and like creating a vision and like really just kind of stepping into badass versions of ourselves, essentially. Of course, mixed in with like going to the beach, listening to music, and like just having fun, playing games and stuff like that. But it was a really impactful weekend, and I want to go to more retreats because I think women connecting with other women is super important, and you just learn a lot of things from each other. And yeah, it was a really great weekend. I'd love to go to more, and I could also be hosting some of my own in the future. That's definitely something in the cards for me.
About to ask that if you were. So
Yeah.
that's exciting. That's freaking awesome. So how did you feel leaving that retreat? I want to.
Yeah, I felt good. I felt great. That was at a time where, 2022, I was dealing with so much like self-doubt and imposter syndrome. Like after my first year of business being so great, the second year there was a little bit of dip in terms of the energy and things that I was feeling from, clients, not clients, but community, right? Like I was putting out offers and like wasn't getting as much interest as the first year. And so that kind of led me into a spiral of like, oh, well, what's going on? Like what happened? Like that kind of thing. And so that trip was a really good reset to like my confidence and like self-doubt and all of that. So I really found that weekend to be a really like pivotal moment for me from last year.
That's awesome. No, that's exciting. Like I said, I saw that happen and go down, and I was very
Yeah.
intrigued about it and how it was. So that is exciting. Even more exciting that you might have your own coming up or one of these days. We'll let you
Yeah.
handle that and get that announced. But well, Ade, we're running out of time here. I absolutely loved having you come back on the podcast. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I still have 4 or 5 more questions to get through, but we're about to run out of time, so we'll save them for another time.
I was gonna say,
But
are any of them rapid fire? We could do them.
um, not exactly.
Okay. It's
There were
okay.
some topics to talk about, but we'll handle them another time. It's all
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
But thank you so much. Really, I appreciate you doing this, taking the time out to come on. It means a lot. So thank you very, very much. Tell everyone where they can find your new page, your coaching information, all that fun stuff, and we'll also make sure to have it in the podcast description when it comes out.
yeah. So you can find all my coaching things at Adriana Simona. I know I go by Ade, but my full name is Adriana Simona Ramos. So on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Adriana Simona is where you can find all of that. The new podcast is called Life is a Vibe. It's on all major podcast platforms and YouTube. So feel free to check it out, rate, review, subscribe, all the things. And then if you want to check out more festival and rave related content, I'm still doing it. So that is over at Vibe with Ade on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube as well. Oh, and coaching website is findyourvibecoaching.com. And you can also find festival blogs and whatnot at vibewithade.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much once again. Bye, everybody.
Bye.